I'm going to do a quick, stupid review. I like that. It's a quick, stupid review. I'm going to do a quick review of this Affinity PJ bass. I've had it for just over 2 years. I got it on sale. It was blemished from Musician's Friend. It's interesting. The blemish was actually just the plastic guard on the pick guard was cut a little bit. I pulled that plastic off, and the pick guard was fine underneath. The plastic actually did what it was supposed to, and protected the instrument. So I got a deal, and I basically got it as something just to play around with. I did upgrade this at one point. I put EMG pickups. They were the passive EMG pickups, and I really like those in here. I also upgraded the bridge. Since then, though, I have put it back to original specs because I ended up taking that other stuff off for a different bass. I'm going to use it on a different bass. So this is back to original specs now. The pickups are okay. They are workable. You could use this instrument tonight on a stage and you would be okay. It's a PJ. I've found I just don't like them. I like a straight up P bass or a straight up J bass. I don't need a PJ. I've always noticed on PJ basses that the P pickup sounds stronger, and that when you switch to the J, it's not quite there. On this one, it's really noticeable. When you switch over to the J pickup, the drop is, you can hear it, but I don't like it. Even when I recorded with this thing, I only ever used the P pickup. I never used them blended. I never used the jazz bass pickup. It's a personal preference, obviously. There's plenty of professionals out there playing PJs, and they love them. So, and hey, guess what? It's working now. And it sounds fine. I mean, it sounds really good. Like I said, I've recorded with this bass. It's not a bad bass at all. I'm using a Nimbrini Black Ice Beta bass amp simulator, and I love that thing. I use it on all my recordings basically these days, and $180, $190 bass can sound good on that thing. I don't even know if I introduced it correctly. This is the Squier Affinity PJ. This was a special edition in white. I think you can get them now in gray and blue. The blue is really, really pretty. I'm going to assume this is NATO or something. I think it's actually a maple neck, but the fretboard is probably Palfaro. I'm guessing Indian Laurel. I don't know. It's good. It feels good. It feels good to play. Obviously, when I got it, the first thing I did was take the strings off and clean the neck, because any instrument that I get that's shipped from overseas has a dirty neck. I mean, I don't know what they do to them at the factory. I don't know if it's the shavings coming off when they do the fret work or whatever, but they are dirty. Yeah, so it's pretty standard bass. 2 volume controls, 1 for each, and then a tone control. The output's on the bottom here, and it's loose because I didn't tighten it up all the way. I should probably do that at some point. So let's get into the actual critique of this thing and the issues I've had with it. The main reason I get inexpensive instruments is so that I can really play around with them, usually upgrade them and record with them, have fun. It gives you a different instrument to play with, which is always fun because you get different inspiration from different instruments. And I'll write something on this bass that I would have not thought of writing on another bass for whatever reason. It's just how the brain works. It looks different, therefore my brain works differently. It doesn't even sound much different. I mean, I've got my old 1994 Fender Made in Mexico P bass back here, and they don't feel too much different, but it plays well enough for me to have recorded with. I can say that for sure. But I have neck issues of one type or another with a lot of the guitars I get from there, Indonesia in particular. I don't know if they don't kiln dry them enough, if they don't dry the neck wood enough before they make the neck and then ship it off. Maybe it's just that it's humid there in the first place, and they simply can't get enough of the water or the wetness or the humidity out of the neck. But generally speaking, I always have issues with fret sprout, and I did on this. I ended up having to get my little file out and file down the edges. This may also be related to the fact that I live in Colorado, and it's not uncommon here to have humidity in the teens and even single digits. We've had that this past summer. And it just may be drying the necks out. The only deal with that is that I get guitars from Mexico, and I have guitars from Japan and guitars from Korea even that don't have that problem. So maybe they're rushing the process with the wood, with drying the wood. I don't know. I would love to get other people's opinions on why this happens, because I'd like to know why. I mean, I deal with it. But so the other neck issue I had with dryness was when I put new strings on it. I hadn't played it in a while. The neck had bowed up noticeably. I mean, that action, it was getting into banana phase, and it was pretty high. And I had to just, wank on that truss rod nut. I don't know how far I went. I know I went at least one complete turn, probably two, to straighten it out. And I ended up over straightening it, and then pulling it back a little bit. So there's still adjustment room in there, but the amount I had to do that, it just tells me that the neck was not done when it left the factory. It must have tightened up in there, and now I am having to adjust the truss rod to get it to flatten out again. That being said, once I got it flattened out, plays just fine. So that's my primary complaint. I'm having some issues now. I see that there are cracks in the paint at the neck joint, both on top and on the bottom. Not sure if it goes into the wood or not, but I can definitely see it's in the finish, which it's disappointing. That shouldn't happen. So it doesn't make it unusable. It certainly is playable still, and again, I'd play it tonight if I had a gig somewhere. I'd certainly have it as a backup. It's if the neck is good, and you can get your intonation and you can get your action right, and you're not getting buzzing frets, you're going to be able to do things with this. It's a good solid foundation if you want to upgrade. Yeah, it feels pretty good. It's weird. I mean, when you play enough instruments, you just get these little tiny subjective differences in the way they feel. This one still, to me, feels a little tight, dry. I don't know why. I have a Fender Geddy Lee Jazz, and it doesn't feel dry. It feels wet, I guess. It feels good. It just has a little bit of a different feeling. This just, again, totally playable, totally usable, makes good sounds. If you want to get one of these, know how to adjust your instrument, know how to maintain your instrument, know how to do your setups. I recommend that for anybody playing any instrument in the world, but if you're a guitarist or a bassist, make sure you know how to set your instrument up. So my rating on this overall, I'm going to give it a 5 out of a 10. It's okay, it's playable, but you really need to know how to maintain and adjust your instrument if you're going to get something like this and it has issues. For money, I give it a 7 out of 10 because they're still only, I think, $240 is what they're going these days, $240. It's a good instrument for beginners as long as you're willing to learn how to adjust and maintain it. I wouldn't recommend this if you're a beginner and you've never, turned a screwdriver on an instrument before, and if you spend $240 on something like this, then you got to take it and get it set up for another $100. You might want to start looking at a higher level instrument instead of blowing the money on getting it set up after you've got it. As a backup bass, if you're a person that wants a foundation to make some upgrades and have something in your own, yeah, it's fine for that. That's what I did with it, and like I said, I've enjoyed it a lot and gotten some good recordings out of it. If you're a beginner, I'd recommend going to a store and actually getting to play one to make sure that there's nothing wrong with it at the store. Again, 2 years later, you may need to be adjusting the neck and other things. You're going to have to do setups on it eventually if you're playing it enough. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend buying it online unless you're prepared to do the work on it once it arrives. Some of the online places have pretty good return policies, but I wouldn't go through the pain of returning anything. So if you're pretty handy with working on instruments, yeah, and you want to just have something to bang around on and upgrade and even record with, or backup bass, it's good for that. Honestly, if this thing's in the back of the gig and it gets stolen, you're not going to miss it a whole lot. 5 out of 10 overall, 7 out of 10 for the money. So I think that pretty much covers it. Like I said, I'm not going to go through playing a whole bunch of stuff for you because what you'll hear is going to depend on your setup. What you hear here is my setup, and I like it. You can make this thing sound good. You can make this bass sound good. If you have instruments you want to get rid of and you're not going to sell them, these were inexpensive instruments, guitars and basses that I've just collected. Donate them. I donated a couple to the school system around here, one to a community college. This particular one is going to be going to Fort Carson. It's an Army base near here, where veterans will get to use instruments and they'll get to use this. So I'm kind of happy about that. I mean, anytime anybody gets to make music, it's a good thing. So if this helps somebody, or if somebody else gets some enjoyment out of it, they're going to get more use out of it than I've been getting out of it lately. Yeah, it works. Well, I will probably miss it. I always regret getting rid of instruments, but again, knowing it's going to a place where people are going to get to use it and it can help them, I'm good with that. So, stay hydrated. But so the other thing, let's try that again. And this one's steel. This one's steel to me. Easy there, big guy.